So you guys like grew up together in New York City, and
No,
wait,
no,
not New
Like
York
all
City.
successful opera singers, we
not
grew up
quite.
wealthy. We grew up wealthy in New York City on the Upper East Side.
Our parents met and fell in love in college choir, and music was always around the family, not in the opera stage, not in the
Yeah.
concert hall, but in church.
I was the top line for most of my life until I finally had a voice change at like 19.
19. Your voice changed at 19.
I was like a high voice soprano until like my senior year of high school.
Fun fact about me, also a late bloomer. About 18, 19 is when my voice changed.
No kidding.
I've noticed that like when you are a late bloomer in like a southern community, it's like the best.
How?
Why?
Tell us.
Oh, wait, I'm sorry. Let me check my notes.
Tell me your experience.
Oh, sorry. It's the fucking worst. Like, it's the fucking worst.
Background. Opera for me did save my life. I went through about a dozen years of what they call reparative therapy, which is kind of a misnomer, where you try to pray away the gay. And I had tamped all of that down to the point where I did not admit anything to myself and didn't follow through with any of those what I considered temptations at the time. And then I had an opportunity to go to opera camp at Siegel Music Colony. It was my tribe. I had to get away from the situation where I didn't know any other way to behave or to live. And I believe if I had continued along that path, I don't think it would have ended well at all. I think it would have ended earlier and not in a happy way. But that's why opera is always going to be meaningful to me, because it's a place where I found acceptance, I found inclusion, and I found love and support that truly was unconditional. And that's why my favorite people are in opera, and it's why my favorite pieces are the ones that make a difference and have that kind of a personal message, not just random kings and queens and fictional characters, but stories that speak to the human experience in that deeper way.
How's it going, boys?
Good.
Great.
Still, Sisyphus raising the money so we
Yeah,
can
is
bring
it pretty?
all y'all here and pay
Do
better
things
fees.
do things kind of slow down in the summertime, or is that when you guys have to double down and make sure you keep things going?
COVID was my first summer, so I don't know how to answer that question.
I'll let you
Well,
know.
I asked Homer when we were done with the recording. I asked Homer, I was like, "So done with all the shows, the tent's down, like you got some free time?" He was like, "No."
No.
Is that Dolly behind you?
Oh yeah,
Love it.
it's signed.
No way.
Yeah.
I need to
Well-
thank her for that shot. I got that Moderna Dolly shot.
Yeah. Oh, nice.
Did you wear the whole
Vaccine,
shoulder cuff,
vaccine, vaccine, vaccine.
Yes.
Well, guys, I thank you so much for coming on to the show. I've known both you guys for a long time, and but my audience might not know you so well. So, could you introduce yourselves and let us know how you're connected to this crazy ass business?
My audience might not know you so well. That means I'm more famous than you. Is that what that means?
No, it's just that. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
my audience.
get it.
My audience is not really sure about who I am. They're like, who is this guy?
I love it. But they're still watching.
He doesn't sing at La Scala or the Met. What's he doing on this thing? Who cares
Oh,
what he has?
pshaw, Michael, come on.
Shaw.
You're an A-lister.
John, you go first since you're the oldest and you, not of this three, but of our family. You can take the lead and I'll be the baby.
My name is Jonathan Blalock. I currently reside in Atlanta, as you can see behind me. I worked professionally for about 10 years as an opera singer in the tenor range. And currently I work as a development officer at the Atlanta Opera, where I raise money so we can continue, hopefully, keeping this art form going.
I guess it's off to me. I'm David Blalock, brother of Jonathan Blalock. I made my professional debut.
Is that how it's on your website?
That's how I start auditions. Hi, I'm David Blalock, brother of Jonathan Blalock. What would you like to hear? I made my debut in 2013 with Mike Mays in Glory Denied, my first tenor role, my professional debut, and I've been singing for 8 years. Married to a lovely soprano, Jenny Hauser. So it's a family affair.
It is a family affair because you guys have been brothers your whole life.
It's true. I've known both of you longer than anyone in the business because I've known Mike for 8 years and I've known Jonathan for 35 years. So.
Yeah, you're in your 30s now. Mike. You're in your 30s now. You can't say 20 something.
Ooh, scary.
So you guys grew up together in New York City, and
no.
Wait, not New
like
York.
All successful opera singers, we grew up wealthy. We grew up wealthy in New York City on the Upper East Side.
But did you were you guys when you were little boys? Were y'all singing a lot or singing together, or when did you come to music at different times, or how did that work out?
Our parents met and fell in love in college choir, and music was always around the family, not on the opera stage, not in the concert hall, but in church. Yeah. And we, in fact, all
Did you ever bring some special music?
Yes, we did special. And we even toured. We did a little tour. We did the Southern Baptist little circuit. We would sing in 5-part harmony, a cappella, and it was a lot of fun.
I was the top line for most of my life until I finally had a voice change at 19, singing soprano. And John, you were a bass at one time, weren't you?
Oh, my voice still hasn't changed. I'm waiting.
19. Your voice changed at 19?
I don't know what happened. I was like a high voice soprano until my senior year of high school.
Yeah.
And then it went down a little bit, late bloomer. So it was we don't know what he is. Just put him up there and he'll be loud. Yeah. He'll sing one of the parts. So I don't even know.
Fun fact about me, also a late bloomer. About 18, 19 when my voice changed.
No kidding.
Yeah.
There's something to that.
It's, I've noticed that when you are a late bloomer, in a southern community, it's the best.
How?
Why?
Tell us.
Wait, I'm sorry. Let me check my notes.
Tell me your experience.
Oh, sorry. It's the fucking worst. It's the fucking worst.
Yeah, that sounds right.
The runs, you get picked on, you get bullied, you get teased. Wedgies, swirlies.
I mean, everybody knows the coolest kids in high school were the ones whose voice hadn't changed.
Oh yeah,
totally. They're usually the quarterback. They're usually the prom king. Sorry.
But at the same time, I don't remember kids coming up to me and saying, "You have hair under your armpits. I want to be your friend. You're so cool." I don't remember that being a real big advantage.
I don't think that works. I don't think that's how it works.
Oh really? So
you're you've got body hair. Come on over here. I'm going to show you the secrets. Come on. Before you weren't ready, but now you're ready. Come on.
Worked really hard on it.
Kids are weird and kids are awful, and luckily we had music to fall back on, and so we had our little musical community. But in our school and our church, everyone sang. It wasn't like we were different because we sang. Everyone sang. It wasn't a unique thing. Is that right?
Oh, really?
It was pretty common. I think of my graduating class, nearly all of them were in the chorale. Nearly all of the 13 sang at some point. A couple that didn't, but yeah.
Graduating class of 13?
I was salutatorian. That's really impressive until you share how large.
Yes, I was a salutatorian. How many people? 13.
Yeah.
I had to beat out 11 other people.
We had to go over those details.
I think I was number 6 in my class out of 20.
So
solidly in the upper 50 percentile.
That's rough. Yeah, I was number 6 in my class. of 7.
Just stop there.
So like you guys went to a time. I mean, I'm from Cut and Shoot, Texas, a little tiny ass nowhere town, but we were so small we didn't have a high school. So I had to go. We had to go to the big city, which was Conroe, Texas, and my graduating class is about 450 people. So that was quite a little country mouse in the big city, which was 26,000 people, massive.
Yeah. Did you do all the music and stuff when you were at the big school? Did you do choir and all that?
I got into choir. It's a whole story, but I got into choir like my second half of my freshman year, beginning of my sophomore year, because of a football injury. And so like
I remember that.
Yeah, so I sort of like fell into it, and then was able to go on to college for it.
Bravo! Now you're here.
Well, we both studied music in school as well. And John, you were not going to be studying voice, right? Wasn't it church music or piano?
A long and crooked path. Started out pre-med and then loathed staring down a microscope for interminable periods of time. And then
you could have been Dr. Blalock.
I probably should have been.
Yeah, did you ever fuck up that one?
I really did.
I'm so angry about it.
I followed my heart. I followed my passion.
Yeah, David's so pissed off. He's like, man, I could have gone to the doctor. Finally.
I was supposed to be the one that like reaped the benefits of his success and also was able to like be a starving artist, but like still go to his beach house in Malibu.
I don't remember discussing that.
We didn't. But I thought about it.
Anyway, I ended up getting the undergrad in sacred music, piano, keyboard, organ, then got a master's degree in choral conducting. I wanted to be the next Robert Shaw. And that's when I started really studying voice, because if you're going to conduct the vocal instrument, you should probably learn how it works. And then I found some kind of menial ability in that area and got a second degree just for the fun of it in voice, and then kind of started working young artist stuff, etc.
You're fucking educated, man. I just always thought you were a singer. I didn't know you had all these degrees, could play piano and all that stuff, man. That's pretty fancy.
You know, our mom...
And I have the student loans to prove it.
Well, our mom, Mike, is a piano teacher. I don't know if you knew that.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So, but you would think, so all the kids must play piano.
You dropped the ball on that one too.
I was a stubborn baby and didn't want to practice. I'm going to go play sports. I don't want to do this. And so she finally gave in, and I regret it every second of every day.
Every time I get a new score, and I'm like, I have to, hold on, let me just.
Yeah. Yep.
Got it.
That's what it sounds like.
You do sing 21st century opera, so I know some scores that sound just like that. That's good. That's a recording, actually.
Yeah, exactly.
I definitely can sympathize with you, David, because I couldn't read music till I got to college.
Interesting.
Yeah. No idea.
What's funny is, I mean, because of my background singing in church choir and like chorale in high school, we were never taught how to read music as vocalists, but I was just so used to looking at it and hymns and stuff that I was pretty good at going up and down with a certain amount of space. So I didn't know what I was doing, but I had kind of a leg up with sight reading. So that was the one maybe like leg up I had on anybody else. But like when it came to theory and stuff,
forget it.
Yeah.
I tell you, like, don't you think that that's one of the big tragedies of what's happened with churches today? Is that they project the words up and then that's it. And so you don't, like when I was a kid, I mean, I couldn't read music, but like it wasn't a stretch for me to get there because I had been reading it, just sort of like the think system, I guess, like in music. Yeah. You're sort of looking at it and it sort of made sense and the rhythm started to, but like today, there are people who look at a sheet of music and have no idea what any of that stuff means whatsoever.
100%. I do think it's a tragedy. And all our family who still goes to church and our parents back home in North Carolina, they talk about that all the time and they really miss the tradition of like, harmony and hymns and all that stuff, But.
Yeah, it really trains your ear when you sing in 4 parts, the hymns as a congregation, and you actually see it there. No one teaches you how to do it, but just having it on the page and listening for it is something that unfortunately has been lost. Now get off my church lawn, youngsters.
You youngsters with your rock and roll hippity hop Christian music. Jesus is spinning over in his tomb.
But it's all, the unison is just not as fun. Everyone's singing the same part. Boring.
Yeah.
Unless Mike and I are doing a show together and we get to sing in unison, then it's okay.
Yeah. My paychecks! Oh! my paychecks!
Right?
Kind of how it sounds.
That's a really, really deep inside joke that one person who sees this will recognize, and they'll be like, "Oh yeah,
oh yeah, I've got that." But like the one glory denied scholar that's on our.
Yeah. Totally.
So, did you guys go to different colleges, or did you guys buddy up and like, let's go to college together and be best buds forever?
Well, Jonathan, first of all, we were not best buds when we were younger. Funny enough, we're very close now, but we're very different than we used to be.
Did you guys used to? I was wondering about that because, you talk about, you hear, I mean, the term is what, sibling rivalry, and so siblings are by nature sort of competitive. You have two boys, that's going to be an extra level of competition, and then you're thrown into the most competitive goddamn business that you could possibly think of. So what, I mean, was there ever like, I mean, of course there were, but what was that like being two siblings trying to like manage, the singing in high school and college and then going into the same profession? How did that sort of develop and what did you sort of learn through that?
Well, I know it's going to be very different for both of us because I was always sort of following in his footsteps. I don't know how you made those decisions, John, but he was at a college for 3 years and I decided I wanted to go there. I had a lot of friends going there, and then we were there together for 1 year, and there wasn't really competition at that point. And then when you went to grad school, and then I followed him there. I transferred to a state school in Greensboro. So I was an undergrad and he was a grad student, and he was doing his conducting thing and I was doing the singing thing. So it wasn't really the same career path yet. And then at some point, Darren Keith Woods heard Jonathan in some master class, and John found out about Siegel and went to Siegel, and it like changed his entire life, which is a whole nother The Quick podcast or video series, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And then the very next year, I had a similar experience, and we were there together. And that's sort of like what started me on the opera path. But it never felt competitive to me because luckily we weren't really the same flock. John was singing his really high stuff and, a lot of new stuff and some Mozart. And so there's a little bit of overlap, but
you were singing baritone. I
was also a baritone at the time, so there definitely wasn't any competition. And we were doing like scenes from Cozy together, and like we were thinking about doing Barber, and we did Pearl Fisher's duet for all the galas and stuff. So it was really like a bonus.
Oh man, I bet they love that shit when you guys would do Pearl Fisher's together. Oh, does your mom still ask for that? Do that one, the fishing one.
The only thing we ever sang that my parents remember any words to is Lonely House. So my dad constantly sings Lonely House all the time.
One more argument for English opera, by the way.
Yeah, exactly.
My dad's not humming Cortigiani, so it's
Sing me that lullaby, that Cortigiani.
It's a great party tune. It's great for humming in the shower.
It's great.
But forgive me for taking over this conversation, John. But it wasn't until later that I switched to tenor that we did one audition one time back to back for the same part. I think it was for an Ottavio, and neither one of us got it. So that's the closest we ever got to like being super competitive. So that wasn't really a problem.
Now tell me the truth, Jonathan. Now that he gave me the bullshit PR, and tell me how much you hate him.
Well, when he moved, it was great because we could do the duets. We did all kinds of duets. We did Agony. We did Lily's Eyes. Did we do Lily's Eyes at one point?
I think so.
We did some stuff in church, and then of course the Pearl Fisher duet. And then he decides to move up to tenor, and then I said, "Well, great. Now I guess gonna have to move up to soprano." Going. But
hey, you could have had a huge career.
Yeah.
It's not too late.
Look, no one's done that one yet, so jump in.
And then when we were both kind of singing tenor, it was nice because when I couldn't do a gig because of a conflict, I would refer David and say, I'm so sorry I can't do it, but I know this other goober who happens to have the same name who might be available.
Yeah, Jonathan, I've had several managers so far in my career, and Jonathan has been the best manager I've ever had. And he doesn't even charge a commission, although I owe him many times over.
The check, it must have been lost in the mail when I moved.
Yeah, you just gotta get paid in wedgies.
Totally. Yeah, I do lots of cooking for him when I'm in town. That's my way to pay him back.
Yeah. So after, like, you guys have, it's been that kind of a winding road for both you guys, and you've been through all different aspects and levels of the business, and
mostly the lower levels, I'd say.
Yes, so self-deprecating.
Well, we've known Mike for a long time, so the audience knows that we've sung at the lowest level. Because, like, otherwise, how would we know Mike?
How would you know me?
No comment.
Yeah, clawing my way to the middle, man. Just clawing my way to the middle.
You'll get there one day.
I forgot what I was going to ask. What was I saying?
You said all levels of the business.
Oh, right. And so, like, at some point, Jonathan, you decided to sort of change your pathway and move into some sort of administrative things. Can you tell us a little bit about what went into that decision, and how did that change sort of the way you felt about the business and the art form and your place in it?
It was such a hard thing to consider. Yeah. And I had thought about it for a long time, and I could see the way the business was going and the way it was going for me, and I still loved it. And I did have a couple of friends who did make a transition. One of them, my good friend Dan Kempson, went back to school. He went to Columbia, got his MBA, and now he's a consultant at BCG. And so he and I would have these deep conversations about it. And it was nice to see other people go through that. Ryan Taylor is a friend of mine. I sang with him in one of his final, I believe, full opera performances. And you were in that too.
Yeah. He was fantastic in that. Yeah, he was Dead Man in Fort Worth.
Nice.
So it was nice to be able to bounce ideas off people confidentially, because you don't want anyone to know you're thinking about it, because then you're not going to be taken seriously as an artiste. Yeah. But I went through a period where I had some wonderful opportunities, great memories, wonderful, meaningful artistic experiences, and a number of disappointments. Not like, oh, I auditioned, didn't get the job, but I was offered roles, and then many of them, please put a hold on your contract, for some really excellent chances. And then for whatever reason, within a period of 6 months, about a dozen fell through. And I just thought, at a certain point, it's time to start adulting. And I was about to enter my mid-30s. And I thought, I love this art form, and I love these people, and I love this business. I really don't want to leave it. And then I realized, well, you don't have to leave it. You can just take a different way and really possibly make an even greater impact by going that other direction. And so Larry Edelson, he's one of the people who I consider to be a mentor and a friend. And I had asked for his advice on these kind of things. And he said, would you consider this opportunity to work in development? And I really did not know what development meant. And, you know, fundraising, I've learned
development
since then. Yeah. Well, I just thought,
I'm already there, baby. I've been working in development my whole life. You see these abs?
I just thought it meant constructing homes. Anyway,
does opera have a real estate wing?
I canceled, if you're lucky. I canceled everything that I had and did not. I was getting offers still, and I didn't accept anything after January 1st. 2018. And in the meantime, I didn't know where I was going to be, but I kind of drew a line in the sand around March that year and said, okay, and took a leap of faith and never looked back. It's been wonderful. And what I realized is I wrote down what I would miss, what I wouldn't miss, what would I regret? What would I not? And for me, what animates me is connection and people, working with people, engaging with people, and having that way to bring the art to people who need to hear it. And so now it's been a wonderful experience. And then COVID happened, and every performer that I knew was unemployed. And I thought, whoa, it's really, really nice. It's still scary, but it is nice to have a job.
Like this whole company has to go out of business before I lose a job. So like,
well, as a fundraiser, that's job security because it's kind of necessary.
It's also a motivation to raise a lot of money because. So when you were like first, like it sounds like you said you wrote down all your sort of pros. Like, so you did like a pros and cons list. So it sounds like you when you make decisions like this, you really deliberate and you have like a real, you sort of you have a real process, and then you sort of made the decision. But like you said that a couple of contracts would come in or offers or whatever. How hard was that? Like when you had sort of decided to make this move, but you hadn't announced it, and you're still getting people saying, "Hey, why don't you come here and sing, Count or something?" What was that like for you? Was it a struggle, or had you already just made your mind up?
Some of them hurt more than others did. And I did continue to sing concerts, readings, recordings, and things as I could. But as time went on, it was easier each time. And then as you move in another direction, you start to gain success and confidence in that new role, you enjoy it more, and you don't doubt your decision as much. And I now have absolutely no regrets whatsoever. And it's been wonderful because then I can continue working with people like you and still support this music that we all love.
Yeah. I remember one time, specifically maybe pretty soon after John stopped singing full time, he had a really bad cold, and he was like, "This is so nice. It's not affecting my life. Like my livelihood is not in danger because I got sick for a couple days." Like, wow, what a game changer that is.
Yeah, and not rolling out of bed and like a crazy person.
Oh my God, I still do that.
No, it's like, and now
and like depending on how well it goes.
Singers, I'm like, this is so strange. What must people think? What are you, some kind of animal, some kind of alien?
Yes. Every morning. Every morning. Yep. Is it there?
Yeah.
Isn't it funny that we literally think that our voice is like some kind of spirit? And that like maybe like the previous day we pissed it off and it may leave us in the middle of the night. You wake up in a panic. God!
It is a spirit, and yours is untamed.
We do check on it every morning, like it might have left in the middle of the night.
Yeah,
having an operatic voice is like being married to a really unfaithful partner.
Please stay, please don't go anywhere.
Oh, lady, be good.
Well, what I love about when I talk to people who are related or like husbands and wives or brothers and sisters or whatever is that one of the great things about it is that you guys have known each other for so long that you've got good stories about each other. So David, could you scan the annals of your story time and lay one on us about old Jonathan?
I mean, first, I could sit here and think of a few, but the first one that popped into my head goes way back to prepubescent Jonathan and David when we shared a bedroom. We had bunk beds on Brucewood Road in Graham, North Carolina, right outside of Saxby, another big town. And John did a bit of sleepwalking. And which one should I choose, John? There are a couple of good ones. One time he gets up in the middle of the night and I hear something in the corner, and it's John taking a pee in the corner, like the stuff hitting the wall, and that wakes me up. The second one is when he gets up and I think he's going to the bathroom, and then I hear my mom scream because she woke up with Jonathan standing in front of the open refrigerator about to urinate in the refrigerator.
So
I don't know.
You were a sleep peer.
He was La Sonambula.
The weirdest twist of La Sonambula ever. He's in a costume. It's just a wet dress. It's all
Yeah.
I'm sure that's been done.
Yeah.
So those are the first things that popped into my head. I won't go any further than that.
Well,
Is
at
it
least,
my turn?
I mean, there's a lot of terrible things that could happen if when you're sleepwalking. Sleep peeing is pretty far down the list. Just pretty safe. It's just a little embarrassing. I had a roommate who did that shit.
Oof.
My roommate in college would he was a drummer, and I was, he was a drummer, so he was always like ladies constantly, constantly in and out of our apartment all the time, and I remember being in bed and our wall, we shared a wall to our bedrooms, which is the terrible idea, and he had a young woman in his room. And they were asleep, and I hear her start screaming his name, like Cassidy, Cassidy, what are you doing? And I sort of come out of sleep, and I hear, and I hear him say, "I'm peeing," and he had his closet door open. He was peeing on his drums because he thought it was the toilet. So
Was it a steady?
Wow.
Sounded like someone was doing a roll.
Was it a steady beat? Was he that good? Was it just like?
Yeah, it was a steady beat. It was like, and then it was like some triplets, the paradiddles.
Now, you're going to give some composers ideas right now. Please.
That's right.
That's true.
The piss aria. Play with a drum. Well, you lay one on David and make it really embarrassing if you can.
I'm really nervous about this.
I'm thinking I'm thinking just about your audience, about your fans, and what would be most meaningful to them. But
You mean David's
To my
fans?
fans?
all of them. There's some overlap, I believe. Anyway, when we were doing the touring church circuit, we would practice and we'd gather around the piano before, and David would get so upset because my sister and I would be goofing off and cutting up and not taking it seriously, and he would start to cry and say, "Guys, we need you to be serious. Come on, guys, we gotta practice." And he would start.
Jesus is watching us.
He was maybe 4 at the time, and we were just, this is so stupid, and we know the music. It's not that hard. And then we got to the church and we sang, and it was time for his solo, and he went up. And he totally just lost his place, had no idea where he was, when he was supposed to come in, what the song was, what music is. And so I think that taught him a very important lesson for his ego at the tender age of 4.
That is weird that I used to be like that, because as an adult, that is not the way I feel about practice at all.
Come on, guys. This is serious.
Mike, get back on stage and stop talking. Let's go. Come on. I like to work hard and I like to play hard. I guess as a kid, I didn't have a good balance.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask, we come from not the same background, but it's pretty damn similar. The world that I grew up in Cut and Shoot, Texas, bears hardly any resemblance culturally, at all to the world I live in now, as far as my professional world. Opera for me it exposed me to a lot of different modalities of thinking and cultural and moral values. And so when I was super young, I was a right wing, major, crazy conservative. And of course now I went all the way across the spectrum, and I'm over here on the left, just free healthcare, free college. And so, I really enjoyed, I did enjoy it at first. At first it was pretty tough, changing your whole way of thinking. But I've really, it's been a wonderful education for me to go from being that sort of closed-minded and living in that closed-minded world and to where I am now. And I know that both you guys lived in a similar kind of community with religion and all that stuff. But Jonathan, like I don't know how comfortable you are talking about this, but you know, you like came out of the closet in your 20s, and
Long ago in my 20s.
in your 20s, and for me, like it's always been like, you know, when I've known people that like grew up in my community that were gay and that had to suppress that through their whole childhood and school and everything else. Can you talk to us a little bit about that, about that change, and about like, was it? Did you find in the opera community a place that was more sort of accepting and welcoming of your sexuality, or was it something that had started before then, and sort of opera sort of helped facilitate? I'm not sure how to couch this, but what I really want to ask is, coming from the conservative world and then moving into this opera world, did you find that a way of sort of releasing into this life because you were surrounded by people who were a little bit more accepting of other people?
It's great that you're asking this question as Pride Month is about to conclude, because as I see this little boat in my background, opera for me, I truly believe, not waxing hyperbolic, that opera did save my life, because it was not an overnight situation. I had attractions to the same sex as children come into awakenings of those things at whatever age, 11, 12. And I went through about a dozen years of what they call reparative therapy, which is kind of a misnomer, where you try to, some people would say, pray away the gay. And I had tamped all of that down to the point where I did not admit anything to myself and didn't follow through with any of those, what I considered temptations at the time. And then I had an opportunity to go to opera camp at Siegel Music Colony, and that's when I first kissed somebody on July 4th, 2007. And then that
How old were you then?
Freedom.
How old were you then?
I'm not going there. I had finished school, and anyway, you don't ask a lady that question, Michael. I don't mind saying I was 25 at the time, and it was my tribe. It was I had to get away from the situation where I didn't know any other way to behave or to live, and I believe if I had continued along that path, I was extremely unhappy and depressed and repressed. And I think that if I had attempted to go much further down that road, I don't think it would have ended well at all. I think it would have ended earlier and not in a happy way. But that's why opera is always going to be meaningful to me, because it's a place where I found acceptance, I found inclusion, and I found love and support that truly was unconditional. And that's why my favorite people are in opera, and it's why my favorite pieces to support, attend, listen to, and to sing when there's the opportunity are the ones that make a difference and have that kind of a personal message, not just random kings and queens and fictional characters, but stories that speak to the human experience in that deeper way.
Well, I know that, like, for especially guys that are like older than us, you know, like guys Darren's age and older, you know, the opera community really was sort of one of the few places where homosexuals could sort of move through life and be considered not just equals, but sometimes, like, you know, they could rise to the heights that would be difficult in, say, you know, a law firm or something like that, like in the 70s or 60s or 80s. And so, I guess I'm sort of just looping back to a point you made about the opera community, is that it was one of the places that was kind of a safe zone. Did you find that was the case when you, like you said, you sort of found your tribe? Is that what that sort of is alluding to?
Yes, and as someone who grew up religious, it now is my sacred space. it is the way to tap into something greater, and where people can come together from all walks of life, all different backgrounds, education, geographic, religious, you name it, age. And that's what still gets me out of bed in the morning. And what keeps me up at night is, how do I work to keep this going? And it's kind of ineffable. But yes, to answer your question, absolutely, that has been my experience. And that's why there's a fraternity, there's a bond that you have with other singers. And it's really hard to explain it to people who've not experienced it. And I thought that I would miss it when I stopped performing full time, but you still have it when you walk into a rehearsal room. That first day, people fly in from all time zones, all different continents, and you open the score and you all say hello and you make the music, and it's instantly your friends. And then you will not see each other for 5 years. And then the next time you'll pass the hall in an audition, or you'll come together for a rehearsal, a sing through, when you all get hired for a random company somewhere completely different, and no time has passed. Yeah. And I really think that that is something magical, and I think that it's because of the music. And it's just, I don't know of any way to put it into words, but do you have that same experience?
Well, I loved what you said just now about how it's your connection to the supernatural. I feel that way with opera. And with performing and just performing in general, like just making art, but like with what we do specifically, absolutely. Like that's, like I'll often say, I lost the religion, but I didn't lose the evangelism. You know, right. now I'm an operatic evangelist. So I'm out spreading the good news about the gospel of opera.
Now please pass the offering plate.
Yeah, now please, it's the same. I'm still begging for money wherever I go. I'd have made a lot more. All three of us, you know, look, this opera shit goes south. All we have to do is just, you know, have a moment, have one of these moments. I found it. And then we'll start we'll get a bass. We'll start a quartet. Call it a day, man.
I don't know if I could sleep midnight, but I would sleep in a very nice bed.
Nice bed. You can sleep in your G7 and you're flying across the country.
I think for the next Crossroads or whatever your next concert is, I think you need to end with the encore with every head bowed and every eye closed.
Every head bowed, every eye closed. I love that. That's so funny. You'd always be like, I don't know, when you guys were kids and they would say every head bowed, every eye closed. Did you ever do one of these?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Just as I am without one plea.
Who knew there were 87 verses to that?
That's so many verses. I'd open up that, they'd be like, just as I am, and be like, oh man, we're gonna be here forever.
I'm so hungry. It's lunchtime.
A lot of folks don't.
Casserole's burning in the oven as we wait.
If you didn't grow up Baptist, you don't realize that, like, at the end of the service, there's a thing called the invitation. Mm-hmm. And that's when, after it, like an entire hour or so of being emotionally manipulated, people like drag themselves down to the altar and have like complete public breakdowns in front of everybody, while some like 60-year-old dude that's like an auto mechanic, like who has no therapy, no psychology, nothing, starts talking to you about getting saved, and then they save you right there.
Mike, what is opera if not emotional manipulation?
I know. I mean, I was just like, it was such a natural shift.
True.
But now we're telling the stories that we want to tell.
Did you have to?
Big difference.
Did they do the thing where they had every head bowed, every eye closed, and then the preacher would say, "Now everybody's only person that's looking here is me. You know, everyone's head's bowed, everyone's eyes closed. And if you've come here this evening and you don't know the Lord as your close and personal Savior, I want you to just raise your hand. I want you to just raise. I see you, brother. I see you, sister.
Yep. You man with a big yellow hat in the back. I see you. Yep.
And you're like, I knew it. I knew it. Church times. It's the best.
Yeah. Anytime the three of us get together, it's inevitably going to come back to our church backgrounds.
Well, it's hard. Other people don't really understand. You know, when I say what my prom was. It was not called a prom. It was called the junior senior banquet. Have I told you about this, Mike?
No.
You get in a prom dress or a tux, as the case may be. You rent a limo. You show up. You get your picture taken with the corsage, the boutonniere. You go into this lovely ballroom and you sit down. You have an elegant dinner, and then someone gets up and sings a song, and then a pastor will give a sermon, and then you go home for the night. And that's was what our situation was.
Did you guys go to a religious school?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I thought that might have been public school. I was like, whoa.
No, I had 20 in my class, John had 13, because it was a small private Christian school that we went to from when we were in kindergarten all through 12th grade.
I'm so excited about prom. It's going to be the best sermon.
Yeah, and with some special music.
And special music from this 87-year-old lady. Why? Why do they think that was going to work?
Dancing was the bad idea. No dancing.
You know why Baptists don't have sex standing up?
They're afraid you might dance.
Might lead to dancing.
That's good. That's good.
But I kind of want to drill down on this because I do feel like, I mean, don't you guys feel a little bit like, you know that when you would get up and you'd sing special music or whatever, and the best thing for a young singer, right, like elementary school, middle school, whatever, is to sing in church because no one can criticize you because you're singing for the Lord. So everything, it's nothing but positive reinforcement. Just 100% positive reinforcement. But when you would actually do it, when you get it, you know, you get the spirit, you know, that little tingle. Because you can feel it, the whole audience, the congregation, I mean, is with you. And they're just vibrating with you, and you just know. And somebody was like, you know, I came to Jesus tonight because of that song you sang, and you just feel, you know. I mean, do you ever, like, when you're on stage, haven't you gotten that same feeling?
Oh yeah, definitely. And also, like, what better, like you were saying, like, what better way to train a young opera singer? I mean, wouldn't you say, at least in our circle, whatever overlap we may have, wouldn't you say a large percentage of successful opera singers have a background in church music? I mean, there is a very large overlap between the music. I mean, the types of performing, I guess you should say.
And it's so important to learn the skills that I've had to try and develop in development, to work with people, to make friends and influence people, to get people to, in a Machiavellian way, do what you hope they will.
Yeah.
Because if you're leading the choir, it does not matter how prepared you are, how excellent the music is, how well everyone rehearses. If your soprano soloist is really ticked off at you, she's not going to show up on Sunday morning, and you're screwed. You're up the creek without a paddle. So I think that those things I took for granted, and then I spent time with others who didn't come from that same background, and sometimes they just don't have the people skills.
That is interesting, Jonathan, because it is like church because it's voluntary.
Yeah.
You know, like nobody
Proper
needs
boards,
this shit.
Yes.
Nobody's like, it's not like your accountant or your lawyer or your doctor. If you don't like that guy, it doesn't matter really because they're doing a job for you. But like if with opera or church, people can just leave. They can just decide, I'm not giving you $1 million a year anymore. You know?
Yeah, and they will.
And they'll do it.
That's really interesting.
Levon Tobin Scott said, money talks and bullshit walks.
Yeah. It's funny to hear you say it that way, though. It's kind of funny because it's so like.
Why is it?
It's so nice. You just say it so nice. Money talks and bullshit walks. Like
it's true.
Doesn't have any like motherfucker at the end of it, you know, like. Well, guys, I want to thank you guys for coming on. It's so good to see y'all's faces and talk about old times and everything.
Thanks for having us.
I think it's great. I think you guys have been sort of it's. I mean, I wouldn't say enigma because you guys are pretty open and pretty free out there with everybody. But I think people are really curious about the sort of brother. You know, there's lots of siblings in our business or twins or whatever, but you know, having two guys that came along and grew up together and you know, we just all love you to death, and I think it's just a great thing to be able to get this insight into y'all's lives.
We love you too,
thanks,
Mike.
You're an unofficial brother for sure. You're in the
I'll
family.
take it.
Yes.
Next time it's wedgies for everybody.
You're always welcome at our Thanksgiving potlucks back in North
Awesome.
Carolina.
Well, you know
extra
what?
gravy.
I may need to take you up on that shit because, you know, my family's always off on the road somewhere.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll get together and sing some Blackwood Brothers. Have a little talk with
Yes.
you.
Yes.
Gather around the piano.
All right, well, thank you guys so much for joining me. Love you to death.
Thank you. Thank you so
Bye,
much.
guys.
It's been great.